I think importantly today you are talking to the members of the media, but we want to recognize the members of the mayoral committee present, the MMC of Finance, some of the councillors that are here, the senior officials from the city and the citizens of Ekurhuleni. And importantly, yourself, the members of the media. And today we stand to update, to share a story of resilience, a story of dedication and progress that began on the 11th of April 2024 when I was elected the executive mayor for the city of Ekurhuleni. This journey, though filled with challenges, has been remarkable with significant strides towards restoring service delivery and rebuilding the public trust in our local government. When I assumed office, our city was in a critical conjuncture. The aftermath of the 2021 November election that left us with the legacy of service delivery challenges under the previous coalitions and prolonged the period of political instability. And our mandate was clear to restore political stability, to improve service delivery and rebuild the city's infrastructure. With a dedicated team, we embarked on a mission with unwavering commitment. And how we started, the first step really was to ensure that we stabilize a government. And on the 15th of April, we did put together a mayoral committee, and shortly after, we held a strategic planning to lay a ground for our plans. And we did pronounce in our State of the City's address a six key pillar program to propel our city forward, that the provision of quality and equitable services in a sustainable manner that will focus on repairs and maintenance of our infrastructure, that will rebuild a strong financial base to support the city's development, that will invest in critical infrastructure in partnership with the private sector, and that economic development with a special focus on Erotropolis, SMMEs and job creation, that also, lastly, good and ethical and effective government in discharging our work will remain key. We announced our initiatives and established the Service Delivery War Room, a multi-departmental platform designed to enhance coordination and tackling service delivery issues head-on. We roll out the mayoral Izimbizo and ensure that there is communication, something that has not been happening in the last 2.5 years. We've been to various communities in Tembisa, in Etwatwa, mainly in our townships. And today we are almost 90 days since we've been in office, and we have achieved remarkable successes. In the area of waste, we've unveiled some of the landfill sites to actually ensure that the issue of waste disposal is supported with the proper waste management infrastructure. We've unveiled waste trucks, 13 compactor waste trucks, completing our full order of 21 new trucks added onto our fleet. We are proud with some of the projects that we've been able to really unveil. For Slora's Multi-Purpose Center, we've given the transformer to our communities in Guatemala. In the area of economic development, we've launched a Fetzatlala agricultural support program designed to empower emerging black farmers and cooperatives. Moreover, some of the efforts, is our commitment to sustainable economic development and job creation, ensuring that we have a brighter future for all the residents of Ekurhuleni. We take pride in the recently awards that the city has actually received in Salga, with the 2 awards for reducing unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure through implementing effective consequence management as we were closing this financial year. And these are demonstrations that we are committed and to maintaining clean and accountable institution as guided by the Municipal Finance Management Act and other legislation. On other infrastructure maintenance, The infrastructure development has been a cornerstone of our efforts. We have made significant progress in the construction of roads, in electrifying informal settlements, in installing high mast in key areas in our city. Issues around safety and accessibility remain our priority, and the MMC of Finance will outline some of the other infrastructure intervention as pronounced in the recently approved budget. Of course, we've got certain issues that remains a worry, that while we still continue to provide clean water, ensuring the blue drop status, building our infrastructure to support the provision of water services. But the lack of communication, in particular from rainwater during the recent planned maintenance, has been an unpleasant professional experience from us, and we think this is one of the areas that we must continue to ensure that we improve on as we engage with various stakeholders. We take note of some of the improved relations with ESCOM, and we think these are critical stakeholders that they should be able to pull their part in order to ensure that we give sustainable services to our communities. We're also focused on strengthening our city's financial stability and ensure that there is a proper revenue enhancement project. Our thriving regional economy remains key to our financial sustainability efforts. And again, we do want other partners because ESCOM matter of down payment just recently is a matter that we're escalating through the IGR. Because for every investment that you bring into the city, we need to have a conversation on the insistence of putting forward a down payment. But we think through a better management and increased capital spending, we're on path to ensure that we've got a sustainable financial health. And this is important to ensure that we support our ongoing and future projects. But there are challenges, and our journey has not been without obstacles. However, we're encouraged by the support we've been receiving from the multi-party in council. The various parties, they've really been giving support to the mayor and the mayoral committee to ensure that we provide oversight and we give a strategic direction to our municipalities. Managing coalition partners and ensuring cooperation from all members of the mayoral committee has been challenging. However, through performance agreements, a strategic planning session, and open communication, we are fostering a cohesive and collaborative working environment. We believe that there are all the relevant laws and legislation that empowers the executive mayor to ensure that we're able to ensure that there is a proper culture, there's a proper discipline, amongst the members of the mayoral committee, so that we prioritize giving services to our people in a non-partisan manner. So the story of Ekurhuleni is one of continued growth, and the ANC-led coalition government is committed to stabilizing our city's finances and enhancing service delivery and realizing the dream of the Africa's first metropolis. We are dedicated to upholding the highest standards of good governance and working tirelessly to meet the needs of our communities. And as we move forward, we will continue to engage our residents, address their concerns, and build a prosperous and sustainable future for all. I want to thank you, the members of the media, but I want to introduce to yourselves, MMC Jongizizwe Dlabati, who has been recently sworn in. He will be responsible for, finance, all aspects of finance, including revenue enhancement, cash management, areas around supply chain, areas around expenditure management, and really ensuring that we do turn around the corner and that all the mayoral pronouncements are supported. We believe that with this member of the team, we will achieve much greater alignment and ensure that we speak in one voice and that we pull in one direction to the betterment of services to our people. He will share with us some of the highlights from the recently approved budget. Thank you very much.
Now, firstly, greetings to the Executive Mayor, and I must really express my sincere gratitude to the EM for his appointment on this important responsibility, and greetings to members of the media. The Executive Mayor has requested me to just touch on two areas. One, just at the high level, the budget outlook, but importantly, to clarify what then becomes the priority insofar as the finance portfolio is concerned. So I must say that it's an honor to present, therefore, some of the highlights of the 2024-2025 budget. And I must say that the budget was developed through a consultation with our communities, and most importantly, extensive engagement with the various multi-party caucuses in council, as the Executive Mayor indicated that we have been enjoying relative support from the multi-party, and it was important for us to therefore engage them extensively. And of course, it's a product rather of proper planning through our budget steering committee. This recovery budget also reflects what the Executive Mayor has pronounced in the State of the City address, in that we must continue to ensure that we discharge our local government mandate, in particular the provision of sustainable and quality services, to the extent that we expand services in areas where they do not have. And in the midst of presenting the budget, we appreciated that we needed to navigate through the economic challenges. As you may appreciate that the economy has not grown sufficiently. Unemployment remains our challenge, especially post the COVID reality. And it has really constrained our ability to generate the much needed revenue. So the city of Ekurhuleni, like many other municipalities, is therefore not immune from these economic challenges. The financial situation to many of our townships and cities is strained by various economic challenges, which have ultimately affected the disposable income of our households, making them difficult really to honor their services. So in terms of the revenue and the expenditure framework, the budget that was approved, it presented a total revenue of about 60 billion, which is an increase from a revised 2023-2024 budget of about 55 billion. In terms of our expenditures, you will also appreciate that expenditures and the income are relatively at the same level. It is also about 60 billion for this financial year, up from 55 billion as well. And this includes significant investment in our infrastructure, social services, as well as community development. And despite the substantial investment we are making, we are equally anticipating through the budget what we call a positive variance of about 601 million, because it is important for the city to always have reserves in an instant where there are difficulties of generating revenue, to tap from those reserves to continue to fund the services. Just at the high level on the infrastructure development, there is a commitment, as the Executive Mayor has pronounced in the 6 pillars, that one of the things that we must do is to heavily invest in the infrastructure development. So about 475 million will be allocated towards roads repairs and maintenance, about 420 million towards upgrading and maintenance of our stormwater drainages, And we continue to invest in our street lights and high mast lights. I'm sure you realize as you drive around that there is a need for us to resuscitate some of the damaged infrastructure in that regard. On matters of energy, we view energy as a critical infrastructure in our space, particularly to power our homes, businesses, and public services. Now, in ensuring a stable and reliable energy supply, it is therefore essential for us to invest in that particular infrastructure. And we do appreciate the fact that there's been some stability insofar as dealing with the load shedding, more than 100 days of no load shedding. But we do have a challenge as a city to ensure that we therefore invest heavily in the distribution infrastructure so that as much as there is no load shedding, but we continue to distribute as an institution. Hence, we will continue to invest in the distribution infrastructure. The budget has allocated about 552 million towards the energy department to focus on various projects that are aimed at stabilizing our energy distribution around the Volcano substation, the Russell Road substation, as well as the Pumulong substation, just to mention few projects. But there are many of the projects that we're embarking on. Additionally, the budget, or rather the electrification program, will be allocated 1.2 billion over the remainder of the MTREF period. Coming into roads and stormwater department, we have allocated around 263 million, Executive Mayor, towards the department to deal with some of the projects which includes amongst us others the Thokoza Master Plan, which has been allocated about 72 million to implement the phases of the master plan in Thokoza. The Bila Street network, about 10 million, Mayfield Extension 67 and 12, about 10 million as well. But the statement does capture some of the projects that we are funding. Now, access to clean water and effective sanitation services is also fundamental in the public health as well as the quality of life. In that regard, the approved budget has allocated about 590 million for this financial year to deal with, amongst others, the Russell Road Reservoir, the Pomona Sewer, the Nigel Bulk Water Line, the Rondebelt Outflow Sewer, as well as the Tembisa Sewer at about 10 million. Moving to transport, we have also allocated 367 million in this financial year, really to complete some of the projects that are related to phase 1, as well as extending the BRT route in phase 1B as well as 1C. On matters of human settlement, it is our view that adequate housing is a cornerstone of our social stability and well-being. Our Human Settlement Department is committed to providing safe, affordable, and housing, as well as to reduce the backlog of homelessness. In this regard, the approved budget has allocated 492 million in this financial year to deal with, amongst others, the Batchley North Extension 4 project, the Leopold mega project, the Daggafontein mega project, as well as to support the Palm Ridge Extension 9 projects, which is aimed at completing about 300 service stands, because those are some of the priorities that the Executive Mayor has articulated. Moving to the tariffs, you will appreciate that we had to really consider what should be affordable tariffs in the midst of the difficulties. But however, some of the tariffs are tariffs that are outside our control, in particular electricity as well as water. But the overall outlook of our tariffs, where we have a direct control, is such that those tariffs have been kept in line or below the CPI that was forecasted to be at about 4.9%. Executive Mayor, just to articulate some of the 5 priorities that the Executive Mayor has signed off after the consultation, so that there is clarity in terms of what the portfolio will be focusing on. The first priority, we will deal with the issue of recovering as well as rebuilding a strong financial position of the city. You would know that for some time we have raised concern about the financial position of the city. We are now at the helm to ensure that we bring about financial sustainability. Part of what we want to really do around this objective is to encourage and foster the culture of payment by our households as well as the business, as the users of municipal services. You know, it is important that before households pay for a DSTV compact, they start by paying for the services of the municipalities, because these are the things that you use on a daily basis. So we want to propel the culture of payment by everyone. In essence, every household must make a contribution towards the payment of services. You may not necessarily service the full or the current account, but our expectation is that those that who can service the full account, they must do so. But those that are constrained, they must make a contribution. There must be no household in Ekurhuleni that passes a month without throwing in something into the coffers. And of course, we want to deal with the debt management so that there are early warnings to those that are owing us money, to be informed on time to make their contribution. And the mayor was very clear that we must resuscitate some of the revenue enhancement programs and to bring in new revenue into the system. So those are some of the areas we are going to focus on, including a consideration to give some incentives to the business that is owing us. There are about the top 1,000 businesses that are owing us money. And we believe that part of the incentive that we can give to the business is to offset the interest on the capital amount and allow them to pay us the capital amount through an arrangement, to the extent that if there are businesses that are able to pay us, for instance, half of the amount that they owe upfront from the capital minus the interest, we are also considering giving an additional discount in that manner. So this is a way in which we are trying really to meet those that are owing us halfway, including a consideration on the debt write-off for the households whose balances are sitting on the days that are way above 120 days. So we do have debtors that are owing us money. And I said to the executive mayor, probably we need to then move with speed to offer that debt relief. You know that we have been speaking about the 75% debt write-off, but that will be a conditional debt write-off, and we will articulate in greater detail. But in principle, we are moving towards that direction so that we give a relief to our communities, but to reboot the culture of correct payment into the system. And the last aspect in this regard is to use our own municipal asset to generate new revenue in partnership with the private sector. The second priority will be to deal with the supply chain management as well as expenditure management. In this regard, we are going to focus on making sure that our supply chain management processes continue to mature and that they are compliant to the fullest, meaning that we should prevent any instances of wasteful, irregular, and fruitless expenditure in our system. We also want to tighten controls in that regard so that the goods and services that we are procuring, we procure them economically at the prices that are reasonable and not bloated prices, but to confine our goods and services on matters that are essential for us to provide services. We also want to tighten the issue of the payment system so that we address the challenges of small businesses not being paid on time. And that ties up also with issues of cash flow management. And the other aspect is to deal with the issue of contract management in the system. The third priority that the mayor has endorsed is around the budget management. And what do we mean? We simply mean that at all times we must have a budget that is compliant and a budget that is funded. Hence, our first priority is around the revenue enhancement and the revenue management. But we also want to have a budget that is responsive and developmental in nature. The mayor has pronounced priorities, there's a GDS, but also there's community needs that needs to be funded. So the type of a budget that we must have is a responsive and a developmental budget, which we must monitor on a regular basis in terms of the related expenditure. The fourth priority that we have agreed to with the executive mayor is around the financial discipline. Given the fact that we are operating in a tight financial environment, there is a need for us to enforce prudent financial management in the system. Equally to deal with issues of cash flow management, and the mayor was very clear in the briefing that we do also need to bring those that have expertise in the field of cash flow management. And within the department itself, we'll then have to look and pull a team that is going to pay attention in the area of managing our cash flow. The issue of value for money is part of the priority under the financial discipline, so that every cent that we are spending, we are able to justify the fact that we are drawing value for money. We are not going to spend as an institution for the sake of spending, but we are going to spend on the basis of drawing value for money. And of course, the mayor was clear to say that we must minimize cost overruns. All our projects, as much as they must be implemented within scope, time, but equally they must be implemented within the cost so that we avoid any additional overruns, in particular our capital projects. And of course, to deal with maladministration within our finance environment. So issues of corruption were very clear that those that must be dealt with immediately with determination so that it does not become a culture that becomes a habit in the institution. And the last priority it's to deal with the improvement of the audit performance. As you know that we have built systems that produced back-to-back clean audits. Unfortunately, with the recent audit, we regressed as an institution. And the mayor was also very clear that we need to regain our space of getting clean audits to the extent that our systems are able to sustain the clean audit. So what we are going to focus on is to make sure that there are acceptable financial reporting and accounting in the system, to ensure that we strengthen our sound financial governance that prevents any material contraventions that may make us not to achieve the clean audit, but also to sustain our internal controls and critically to continue to resuscitate and improve our relationship with the Auditor General South Africa. You might be aware of a debacle that took place prior to the issuing of the audit that produced a regression. So we don't believe that we really should be fighting with institutions that seeks to strengthen democracy and to strengthen accountability. And we're doing all of this purely because of the commitment to good governance, ethical leadership, and really to make sure that we restore confidence into our communities insofar as the management of the public purse is concerned. So thank you very much, Executive Mayor.
Thank you very much, Executive Mayor and MMC. Colleagues, we are going to open now for questions. You remember we said you introduce yourself, the publication in the House, and then you shoot. Please indicate as well who you're directing the questions to. We'll try and I'll start with you. And then I'll move to you.
Mr. Mayor, Brian Sokuta from the Citizen. You've made mention of the ESCOM down payment, and one wonders how much we're talking about. Are you able to give us a breakdown, and what is the city's plans to service the ESCOM debt going forward?
Okay. Next.
Thank you very much. I'm Kawana Maholeo from the UFM. Mr. Mayor, this...
Sorry, from?
UFM.
UFM.
Yeah, the petrol one. The 2 awards bestowed on the municipality by SALGA. Yesterday the EFF was out there claiming credit for it. Later on, I saw that Action SA was doing the same, saying it was actually because of our contribution in MPEC that monies were not wasted. Exactly how was this achieved? Because this is the same MMC that you reshuffled on the basis of alleged incompetence. Who should the public think delivered this? Was it delivered by the previous coalition or this current coalition, and who in particular? And tied to that, how solid is this coalition that you are leading since you fired an MMC? There's now been speculation to say naturally because of the GNU, the ANC Ekurhuleni is expected to completely cut ties with EFF. If you can just paint a picture regarding that situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Ekurhuleni Mayor from CFM. My first question goes to Mr. Mayor. After you have fired the chairperson of the EFF, which is part of this coalition, where does this leave your relationship with the ANC, in fact with the EFF in this municipality? We are told that some of them will resign. Are you anticipating such move, and what is your plan in trying to close that gap? But also in terms of the chief whip now space, are we going to see you as maybe trying to amend, putting the EFF person there, or this is the end of it between you and the EFF?
Afternoon, Mayor. Thank you so much from the Party Network. Mayor, looking at, I think this is based through the finance committee. Looking at the investment and infrastructure, there's quite a number of projects that Ekurhuleni has put on hold since its administration started, from the time of the DA as mayor to the previous who started recently and to the current. Some of them being the establishment of the University of Ekurhuleni, the building of the rebuilding of the SABC, the construction of service centers in places like Tsakane and so forth. And this is now going, the administration left with about 2.5 years to implement those particular projects. In terms of that infrastructure development, how are you coming in and ensuring that there's a fast track in those particular projects?
Any other taker? I think that's it, Mike.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think on the ESCOM, what is important is that we continue to service our account, and it's important that we give that assurance to our communities as a critical stakeholder. And of course, that's why we went on even to acknowledge some of the improvement, the 100 days without load shedding. It's quite significant in the impact that it has in our regional economy and also on the revenue of the city. Because if there's no consumption, a 2 hour where the industry is not consuming, can you imagine if you calculate that over a month and the impact on the projected revenue? So we are grateful. We'll continue to monitor whether there's real improvement in our finances because of now there's no load shedding. So we're looking forward to this quarter's results, and really we want to appreciate that effort. But on the same breath, we are a city in Gauteng, and we contribute significantly to the economy of South Africa. We're an industrial city. There is investment application, development application that comes through for expansion, for new industries, and so forth. And we always strive to ensure that we are ready with the land, and the land is being serviced. However, recently we've experienced an insistence from ESCOM that for a new investment that comes into the space, there must be a down payment. A 6 billion investment, you're looking at about 200 million down payment. Where do we get that money as municipalities? It means it therefore delays that type of investment. We'll have to go and look for 200 million in order to connect this new company when there's not really a need for a new substation or a new infrastructure. That's a question of capacity. But we're taking up this conversation with the Premier. We're happy that the Premier is back, and Premier Panyaza, he will resuscitate once again the Fridays meetings that we are having with ESCOM to actually raise these issues. And we're happy with the energy that Sputla, a minister now, Ramokgopa, was being given that responsibility, and we're hopeful that those issues will be resolved. Can you imagine? We are projecting over 200 billion investment with various projects on the pipeline in our space, and can you then anticipate how much down payment that we have to put up and how much constraint that will have in the growth of our regional economy and much needed jobs that we actually need. But I'm sure this is one area that we'll continue to have conversation on to actually ensure that it is unlocked and it does not create problems. And I think the issue of the former MMC of Finance, we made a decision because we appointed the MMC. And when we made that appointment, there was a huge outcry. I must say I was elected on the 11th of April, and my appointment was unopposed. It was celebrated across. But when I made that appointment, there was a huge concern and a huge doubts that we'll be able to take the city forward. But we trust in the systems that are given to us by the legislation, that we should be able to pull the team, ensure that there's a proper culture, there's a proper discipline, and that everybody follows that which the mayor has pronounced as priorities. And that's why we're sitting really, is that we set the message from the top. If we're saying we need to cut down on the regular wasteful expenditure, it is a message that we cut from the top. And we expect all the institutions within council, the administrative, the political oversight, and critically in this case is MPEC, which is a municipal public finance account committee. They are able to work to ensure that they monitor the administration, because it's administration that must enforce consequences. Where there is issues that have been picked up by AG or even by our own internal control, are we able to follow up on the issue to the latter? Do we have a financial disciplinary board to deal with the issues? Are we able to follow up and ensure that we recover where we've lost money? So those systems really are in place. They are further strengthened. And we've actually ensured that we put that emphasis, because that assurance goes a long way. And that is why the different bodies that are looking into our environment, they are able to issue us with a certification. So it's not a question of when, it's about what you do currently to assure our communities that we're on right track. And I'm sure the MMC of Finance can further expand on that area, because as a chief whip, he has been also looking very closely into that aspect as well. How solid is a coalition? We think so far we're going well. As long as we're able to pull through and ensure that we deliver services to our people. And that's what's fundamental. We will soon be, we have now approved the budgets. We have approved the service delivery implementation plan and related targets. We have crafted the performance scorecards for all the MMCs, and we will soon invite the members of the media to witness the signing of those performance scorecards. And we expect all members of the mayoral committee, because when we're here, we're non-partisan, we're government. What we do outside politically, I might not be able to really comment, because I am here as a member of, as a leader of the mayoral committee, as a leader of this institution. But in my other life, I'm, of course, a leader of the ANC, and I'm sure the ANC, through its structures, will find a way to communicate. Where the regional executive committee meeting last night, and the ANC will consult through the province and national, and in due course we'll be able to make a determination in terms of the latest development. But as far as we're concerned, we've got various instruments now to ensure that we get this team to actually take the city forward. We are looking forward to closing the 100 days, and I think by the we had the State of the City's address on the 30th of April. So by 30th of July, we're closing the 100 days. So there's certain measures we expect the mayoral committee as a team to actually deliver on, just to ensure that our first 30 days we live up to expectation. We set a proper foundation and a proper culture for us to actually build on. So I believe with this team, we should be able to turn the corner. Of course, we could do better because the multi-party is always there to actually give the much needed. Where there is a bit of uncertainties, but council, the wisdom of council is always there, and they continue to give us the necessary support. So I hope I'm also answering you, Lungelo from the Kasi FM. The people of Caterers, they must be happy that we are here. We did indicate that we think we'll be here for the remaining of the term, the 2.5 years, because our people, they're looking at us delivering services. As long as we do things right, there should be no reason really to want to remove this mayor and this mayoral committee. So a number of projects that are put on hold. I did indicate when it was that he will be able to share, the budget, because we did the budget address amid the pooling and because we're saying this is where we must go. Let's integrate the priorities of our people. Let's ensure that the abandoned project, which were called a vanity project at the time, because the DA-led coalition stopped projects which were designed over time, which were supposed to take the city forward. And that DA-led coalition was also enabled by the EFF. So that is why these projects were left idling. In the last term where we had people's government or minority-led mayoral committee, which was also enabled by the EFF, we had continuation of these challenges. And that is why we had to then align and ensure that we do take these projects and bring them into life, ensure that they are funded, so that in a year's time, we have a different communication about some of these projects that are lying there idling. But I'm sure the MMC of Finance will then be able to bring a bit of certainty if there's specific ones, and how are you going to be, periodically getting updates from his department.
No, thank you very much. Maybe just to amplify from your last point, Cindy Sontlabati. Our attitude is that we must continue to invest in infrastructure development, both for social as well as for economic purposes. There's a backlog that needs to be addressed in terms of infrastructure, but as much as you do that, you need to invest into programs that must generate revenue for you to be sustainable. So our view is that those projects need to be supported. However, our primary focus with the budget, given the fact that it is a recovery budget, under serious economic challenges, we are focusing on the repairs and maintenance of our own infrastructure. And that is why we are also resuscitating some of the programs that we believed under the flagship program, they make sense for us to invest in. And as the mayor said, those that took over, they projected an image that those projects are vanity projects. For instance, it was us in the last term who said we must advance a program, for instance, of a botanical garden, because that has a huge potential of revenue generation. And to date, that project is now being advanced, but it was termed as a vanity project. So it's just a typical example, because there you don't spend a lot of money as a city, but you are inviting private sector investment to come on board. And that is the posture as the city of Ekurhuleni. We do not have sufficient revenue. Where do we get it? We must invite the private sector to invest in the city through us unleashing our assets that can be exploited for revenue enhancement. So the rebuilding of the Rabasutu Customer Care Center, you will also remember that it was as a result of community members not being listened to by their own government, and it resulted into the damage of that infrastructure, unfortunately. And that is a matter of insurance. So insurance processes, yes, are underway. Actually, the mayor says they've paid. So there will be a process that will then start to resuscitate the Rabasutu, so that the community of Tembisa can be able to walk in the nearest center to access government services. The second last point, just to amplify, is around who takes the credit for the reduced, unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. The ANC-led government has built system over time. So it's not the Jongizizwe as per se, but it's the system that we build in the institution that must produce these ideal results. And that is why our view is to strengthen our financial and internal control, so that on regular expenditures, but also to achieve clean audit as a way of boosting confidence into the public. So those are the systems that have been long built by the ANC-led government. And of course, those that are presiding over the portfolio and the term at the time carries the responsibility to reaffirm the tone of good governance, good financial control, and really a clear stance on maladministration, fraud, and instances of irregular expenditure, which is the tone that we are sustaining as the ANC. And lastly, Brian, is that over and above ESCOM, because you asked the question, the city's plan to service the payment, we reaffirm our commitment to pay ESCOM. We reaffirm our commitment to pay ERVAT and small businesses that are in the value chain of providing essential services within the acceptable period. And that is why the first priority that the mayor said, let's pursue, is around the issue of revenue enhancement and revenue management in order to strengthen our financial ability to service our current obligations. Thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you very much, Mayor Musi. Do we have any other takers? I see him by the young boy now. Again? Follow up. Any other person? Just in there, we've got the last three hands, and I'm sure after you've responded, we can conclude this particular session. Let's start with you, Mike.
So, my name is Ekurhuleni for SABC. I'm just going to add to the question asked previously by my colleagues from UFM as well as SABC. And that question is pertaining to the relationship between the ANC and the EFF. In a conversation or an interview with the ANC provincial chairperson, he declared that the position for ANC of finance was reserved for the EFF. And we have now seen the removal of the EFF ANC and him being then replaced by an ANC candidate. Is this the beginning of the end for the relationship between the ANC and the EFF, which has oftentimes been turbulent and seen very unsavory comments coming on both sides, from both the ANC corners and the EFF corners? could this be a sign of things to come? Also, when you, Mayor, when you refer to conversations about GNU and that these are conversations that still need to happen at provincial level as well as national level in terms of the relationships that you're going to build to continue until you finish your term. Are you saying that there are conversations that are happening which will determine whether or not you will be joining the government of the national unity and looking for democratic rise and severing ties with the EFF, or will you continue the relationship with the EFF and use the mechanisms that you're now putting in place to ensure that there is a way of, having checks and balances to ensure that everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Next.
Abusiswe Vilakazi, Jamestown City News. I know maybe you're going to get irritated at some point about this question with the relationship to the EFF. You mentioned, you said things like the discipline and following the culture. And like you said, there was an outcry when you were appointed to the EFF MMCs. With the ones remaining, are you going to put a close eye on them, especially when you mentioned the 100 days and reflecting on what they have achieved in the departments? Because the ones you also reappointed in the sanitation, they were still not really performing on the previous positions, but you still put them as MMCs. And you mentioned again that you believe that this executive that is in now will remain till the end of your term. But if there's a further outcry on these MMCs, are you going to remove them and replace them, or what mechanisms are you going to put in place? And the second question is, you mentioned, this one is for the MMC, you mentioned that you're going to be putting focus on settlement. In your budget, is there a focus in the inner city? Because you say that Ekurhuleni is the hub of business, and the inner city is dying. The situation is dire. It's just falling apart, and that causes other businesses to move away. Is the city, by any chance, gonna look into the inner city of the illegal buildings and converting them into accommodations, or attracting more businesses coming into the area? Are you considering that? And also that the MMC mentioned places like your botanical garden, Jamestown, Victoria Lake is falling apart. Is there budget into looking into that? Because you're canoeing that using the lake so much for the event, but they've been complaining about the quality of the water and that the city needs to intervene. The park is falling apart. What are interventions or budgets that is going to be put in place to look into those things? And lastly, MMC, you said that the businesses who are owing the city, also the residents, the culture of payment. The culture of payment is not happening now. What strategies are you guys putting in place to enforce your residents paying? Because already we have people who are doing illegal connections, but the city is not really clamping down on the issues, and it's affecting businesses. Because when we ask the city of what measure they put in place, there's not really much of a plan or security measures that you guys are putting in place. So how are you going to influence the culture of payment when you cannot even sort the problems of illegal connection, because it's also costing the residents? Hence, some of them say they will not pay when they're already not getting enough the worth of what they pay.
Thank you.
Thank you for this, Mayor. I think I want to go on the fence of what you just said. Looking at the tariff caps that you stated, which is 4.9, if I'm not mistaken. What does that actually translate? Because when you're looking at what happened in the city of Johannesburg, that particular 6.5 translated into a 200 rand increase for the residents of the city of Johannesburg. So I want to just get an estimate of what basically tariff caps are going to be looking at in terms of finances, in terms of that. And secondly, Mayor, you stated in your address that the city was targeting 6,000 jobs for residents, and particularly young people in your state, in the segment. And the last I checked, you were at 2,046 of the jobs that were created with as one of the from the president's particular that one. So how far in terms of those particular jobs are you in terms of ensuring that young people have employment within the city of Ekurhuleni, and including how much investment has been targeted for young entrepreneurs in the city of Ekurhuleni? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Executive Mayor, we'll start with you.
Yeah, no, Bali. I think let's appreciate the question, and I must say that the region is not under administration politically and in government. What it actually means is that we are given an opportunity to lead ourselves, but also to give a strategic leadership to the administration, government, and service delivery. We do consult our higher structures, in particular the province and national, on how do we move, ensure that there's proper alignments with frameworks that have been developed at the higher structures. And the case in point is the national framework on coalition, which is still standing. And of course, the national framework on coalition came after the provincial framework, which gave us a particular arrangement. And I'm saying the expectation is therefore that we should be able to grow or evolve until such time that we are fully aligned without shocking the system. So as development allows us to make adjustments, we'll continue to do that. But we can further, engage in a proper political platform, in our other lives as the chair of the ANC or convener of the ANC and the coordinator of the ANC for greater articulation in terms of party issues. We want to confine really ourselves today into government. And we have to speak on the basis of the product that is before us. On Monday, we did get a briefing from the national leadership. They came down to brief the provincial structures, which we are part. And on Saturday, the national will be coming to brief the region. It means all the structures of the region will be getting the briefing on the GNU. And I'm sure politically we'll then be able to take up a conversation, and if there's a need for us to do an update, we'll be wearing a different, not looking nice, but we'll be looking nice with the party regalia. And I think for us it's important that we put this line, because we're taught, and our orientation is that we must separate the party and the state, which is a very important attribute for our democracy, that remove the party when we are doing your government work. And that's what we want to really be looking at. And indeed, we still have, the relationship we have not pronounced in terms of what needs to happen. And as far as we are sitting, MMC of Finance was confirmed when we were elected into office. And we went on to effect that decision. However, how we function throughout, if there's areas of underperformance, our people must come first. And I think that is an important principle that we just want to affirm. The continuation of service delivery, the project to deliver services to our people should come first than any other political issue. And that is why when we're here, we think the changes that we've made in the area of finance, the expertise that we're bringing, it will go a long way really in ensuring that we bring about the much needed change in the finances of the city and in the delivering of services. So I must indicate that there are structures that we have put in place where there is tension in the mayoral committee. We've got what we call a joint political management committee, which serves as an escalation for political wisdom. But of course, it does not stop, or deny the mayor, because the mayor is elected by council with clear, legislative prescripts. The Structures Act, the Systems Act, bestows certain authority with the mayor, but also for accountability. So we can never delay making decisions because there is delays in the political conversations. We must run the city in the meantime, and really conversation, they will find us delivering services to our people. And I'm sure you can even expand on these areas of the GNUs as asked by Umbali. And I'm sure I've attempted to answer you as well, Busi Vilagasi, because you are saying the relationship with the EFF. Are you going to achieve, what are you going to achieve with them? And I'm saying so far we are moving. And where we're going by next week, we will be signing performance contracts with each member of the mayoral committee, because we've got now budgets, we've got targets that have been approved. And we do that looking at the members of the mayoral committee beyond political lines. And I'm sure we've confirmed that we have an ability to get alignments if needs be. And I think that's a type of culture and discipline that our people expect from us. They want certainty that can we get the coalitions to work? And I think we're determined in Ekurhuleni to get coalition to work in the interest of our people.
No, thank you very much, EM. I know that you are giving me the space to breathe on those issues, but you being our political head, I think you have sufficiently represented us. Probably in the other platform will be in a position to make further inputs. Cindy, so what we'll do, we'll just request the team just to get us the average rand increase that is informed by the increase in the tariffs themselves. But what I can assure you is that in our determination, the tariffs where we have a direct control as a city, we've tried to keep them at the lowest, either at CPI or below CPI, except for those that have been over CPI for reasons that, there are services that needs to be provided at a particular cost. So we will make that information available to you. Bosisiwe, certainly, the focus is also on urban renewal, and that includes, our central business districts areas. And without a doubt, we all know that there's been a notable collapse across all our CBDs. And I think it is a correct posture for us to then invite the private sector to come and invest, amongst others, in the inner city development. Those that know Braamfontein, Braamfontein was not what it is today. There was a decisiveness, through the Joburg Property Company at the time, for instance, to invite private sector to invest, turning those buildings into student accommodations, into office parks, and other social and recreational facilities. And that is what government must do, to demystify the thinking that you can do everything, you have all the money. You need private sector to come and invest. Certainly, there is a resolution of council which was supported to say buildings that are illegally occupied, buildings that are redundant, and for that matter, buildings that are owing us a lot of money. I said to the executive mayor, we need to begin to zoom in practically on how do we take over those buildings and unleash them to the private sector for development. Whether it's social housing at the rental, you have a college here in Germiston that requires student accommodation. So these are the typical things that we need to decisively move on. So resuscitating our central business district through the involvement of private investors continues to be a focus, because we can't leave those behind whilst we are focusing on the township development as well. Lakes and dams, they present a huge opportunity. In fact, in the previous administration, they would have formed part of the flagship projects. Just like your Gilolis, the Lakes and Dams program was also halted, Executive Mayor. And these are the strategic land parcels that you must unleash to the private sector to invest and turn this asset into something that can generate revenue. And that is why in the very first priority area, I said that on our part, there is an intent to exploit our municipal assets. So our lakes and dams constitute part of the municipal asset that we must just give it there for private investment. The culture of payment, the message around the culture of payment has actually been neglected for some time. The leadership must be clear that people must pay for services. And we are saying those who can service the account fully, they must do so. Those who are constrained in terms of that disposable income, but they are able to pay DSTV, they must pay for municipal services. I mean, if you pay 500 for DSTV, what is the difficulty of really paying that 500 as part of your municipal services? You wake up in the morning, you want water. Sewer must be running. You want us to collect waste. So it can't be that you prioritize DSTV. I know I'm emphasizing on this thing over the things that are essential for you. And the call we are making is that all households, as a matter of principle, let there be something that they are paying into the coffers of the city. Those who can pay fully, they must continue to pay as per the billing that we are providing to them. And of course, credit control is something that we must continue to apply. People who are not paying deliberately for the longest of time, we must invoke the credit control. But over and above, we are saying that where there are challenges of debt, we are considering a debt relief of 75%, which will be conditional. And that condition includes, amongst others, a demonstration of household making that minimum contribution into the coffers of the city. You go to some of the townships, the payment level is way below 50%. So it means that if really the attitude of contributing something into the coffers is accepted by our communities, we can make an improvement in the inflow of our revenue, so that we are able to respond quickly. When you say that the power station has been damaged, you can't expect the power station to be fixed if you are not paying. Hence, we are saying everyone, minimum payment at least must come into the coffers of the city. I think I will end there, Executive Mayor, insofar as the finance-related questions.
Executive Mayor, MMC. Members of the media, I think this brings us to the end of the session. I do know that NK Noktula there has got copies of the presentation as presented by both the Executive Mayor and the MMC. So members of the media can just, on their way out, can just get copies from Noktula, and she will try and distribute them as well while we're there. There is also a request, Executive Mayor and MMC, for one-on-ones. If you do have the time, if you can take one-on-ones with some of the media houses. And what I would request there is that if you are having a one-on-one perhaps with the SABC, and there is a radio station that also wants to have the fight, if you can just combine yourself, members of the media, please, so that we save time. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I will put a coherent message.